Well, guys, just looked at the watch. It's December 1st. It's Sunday. Quiet Sunday here. Actually, not that quiet. Nick's in town visiting us from Edmonton. It's Nick's girlfriend's birthday this weekend, so he came down from Edmonton to spend time with his girlfriend, but he's taking the bus back to Edmonton this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So anyways, December 1st, hard to believe it's already December 1st, 24 days left until Christmas. I'm 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 just getting ready this afternoon. I'm preparing for my trip tomorrow, so I actually have two trips planned in the coming weeks. I have a bigger trip with Evan Robertson planned for December 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. We're doing 4 days, 3 days, 3 nights out. Um, don't forget the first date bourbon, Marty. Yeah. So Evan and I are going out 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. We're going to Mount Assiniboine Provincial Park. So we're going to do a 4 day trip. Two of those nights will be at a backcountry cabin, and then the third night will be on our own. But we're both looking forward to that trip. We're doing our, it'll be, it's winter hiking, obviously, and it's a continuation of the cooking outdoor series. But in preparation for that trip, since I'm unemployed these days and I have a bit of time on my hand, I'm leaving tomorrow, Monday, for a quick overnight. So I'm going to do Monday night and back here on Tuesday. And the reason I want to go out tomorrow is I want to go out and test my pulk. So I built that pulk a week ago. The pulk, for those who didn't see the video, is that trailer toboggan sled that you pull behind. Allows me to bring more gear in the winter. So I'm going to test my pulk this weekend before I bring it on the trip with Evan. I want to see just how much weight I can comfortably carry. So I'm not going to bring useless weight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it out to the trail, and then I'm going to probably load it up with some couple of rocks or some firewood or things that I could leave, drop off if I don't need them. But I'm going to, so I'm doing a nice simple hike tomorrow. I'm going to leave early in the morning, and I'm driving to Banff. And then from Banff, I'm going to go just a wee bit north, and I'm going to go hike along the shores of Lake Minnewanka. It's a nice winter area. The reason it's I enjoy doing it in the winter. In fact, doing Lake Minnewanka in the summer is kind of complicated. From June to, I believe, September, there's a period in the middle of summer there where there's a lot of restrictions on the trail. It's a popular trail with tourists. First of all, there's power boats on the trail. There's canoes. There's also on the lake. Sorry, not on the trail, but it's a popular trail. But it's also extremely popular with tourists and with bears. So they put a lot of restrictions in the summer months. It's hard to get onto the trail, but even if you succeed on getting on, you have to get on with a party of four. No dogs allowed. I have to bring bear spray, things like that. So I look forward to actually doing the trail in the winter. How much snow is at my house right now, Joe? I'd say about just over half a foot, 6 inches, a little bit more. Plowed the driveway twice already this year. And we've had snow on the ground since September, but this snow now that we have is staying. It's not going anywhere. And actually, I wanted to go on a trip last week. I had lots of time last week to go on a trip, but I chose not to. I posted another video the other day that said, when I go out on a trip in the winter, I need to be prepared for -20, -25 weather. So I need to be prepared for that. But it doesn't mean that I go out when it's -25. So the forecast, we had this low pressure or this high pressure ridge that pushed in this cold air. And we've had about 5 days in a row now of very deep cold. And so even though I am technically prepared for deep cold, I had no intent of going out in the deep cold. It's dangerous. Going out in the deep cold, especially alone, too many things can go wrong. And so I don't choose to put myself in that situation. Now it is relatively warm. The temperature outside today is -2, and it's forecasted to drop to -7 Celsius at night. Tomorrow is going to be similar. In fact, I looked around. I was going to go down in Kananaskis, which is an area south of Calgary. It's one of my favorite areas because it's free to go down in Kananaskis. but the forecast for Kananaskis tomorrow and the day after tomorrow is above freezing, so 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, and that actually is that's a bad temperature range. You get really really wet when it's only when it's above freezing. So I prefer, my ideal range for winter is that -5 to -10 Celsius. Then you don't get too cold. The snow stays frozen even when it touches your hands and things like that. You can dust it off. Things don't get wet. So how am I getting ready for that tomorrow? Right now I'm charging batteries. I'm going to make sure, and actually that's another thing. So I haven't done a lot of solo hikes this year, and I made a comment earlier. This was a summer of collaborations, and collaborations are great. And I had great collaborations. Went out with Maddie Outdoors. I had Eric come up from California. I went out with Evan and other YouTubers. So I had some great collaborations, but I noticed that while I was collaborating, my focus on the trail changed, and I wasn't videotaping quite the way I like and documenting the way I liked. And I became conscious of that when I went out with Evan a couple of weeks ago, and I tried to change the format. Unfortunately, on that trip, the little elbow trip, it was so darn cold that I wasn't taping a lot. So tomorrow, my focus tomorrow is, it's a short hike, so it's only about 8 kilometers to get there. If I leave early, I will have 5 hours or 6 hours to travel a mere 7 kilometers, so that's nothing for me, which means that I'll have a lot of time to focus on documenting that trail and videotaping. So I want to put a little bit, I want to go back to to my roots and do a video more around what it's like to camp, and less on the scenery, but more on focused on the mechanics of camping, putting on the snowshoes, pulling the sledge, starting the fire, cooking, that kind of thing. So I'm getting ready. So I got the sledge ready. I got the gear selected. So I'm taking my North Face tent. I'm going to take 2 sleeping bags. I'm going to bring that little Yuko lantern that I've did a video on. The food's going to be simple. Again, back to my roots. I'll be allowed fires there, so made sure that there's smokies in the fridge. So I'm going to grab a couple of smokies, and it's a basic trip where I get to go and sit by a fire, hopefully alone on a nice trail, and just contemplate life. All right, any other questions? So somebody said they liked the video of the 90s. It's something I get nostalgic about. It tends to happen every Christmas. It happens when I'm at home for a couple of days, and I start to go through my computer. So I have 2 computers at home, and about once a year I have to spend an effort to clean up the computer and get rid of a lot of old files, because I take so much video and video nowadays in 4K or 1080 takes up a lot of space, and even a modern computer, you can run out of hard drive quickly. So what I do is I end up going through videos, deleting old stuff, backing it up on hard drives. And that's a very good question. I'm going to come back to that one. But I tend to spend a lot of time around Christmas. It's an annual tradition where I clean up my computer and make room. And every time I do that, I end up going through old files, and then I always hit those old videos. So I have these old VHS tapes that years ago I converted to digital. I have tapes that go all the way back to the 1990s. And once in a while, I put one out on YouTube, and I'm glad you guys enjoy them. So somebody just asked a question: How has hiking changed in the 90s? It's changed on a lot of ways. Fundamentally, the number one. Actually, here's my thoughts on that. I would say. In the 90s, there was a hiking community in the 90s back in the 90s, I was living up in Jasper. And Jasper National Park in the 90s was doing a great job of maintaining the trails, but there weren't a lot of people on the trails. And there weren't a lot of sources and resources to know about the trails. There certainly wasn't a lot of resources in terms of gear. And so hiking in the 90s was fun. Hiking in the 2000s, for me personally, that's when Nick was born in 2000, Patrick in 01, 04. So that the early 2000s for me, I didn't do a lot of hiking, but I also call it. It wasn't the golden era of hiking. The 1990s were for purists. Then it got quiet in the 2000s. The parks went through a transformation, and then in about the 2010, the last decade, there's been a complete resurgence of hiking. Hiking is way more popular, certainly because of the internet, certainly because of the young folks coming around wanting to do something different. And the gear, the explosion in gear has made hiking, I would say, completely different than what it was in the 1990s. And actually, I'm going to do a video. It is on my list of things to do because I still have a lot of old gear. I will do a video. I might even go out in the wilderness dressed in my 1990s attire, which would mean a lousy tent. I had a tent from, I still have the tent downstairs. I still have an external frame pack. I will wear old leather boots. I have boots. They're basically work boots that I was wearing in the 1990s. Army surplus pants. I mean, you could go to Mountain Equipment Co-op, but you could not go, and there was no Mount Hardware, there was no Arc'teryx, there's no North Face existed, but you couldn't get that gear. So the clothing that I wore in the 1990s was either surplus army clothing or hiking or plain old t-shirts. You'd find some synthetics, but there was a lot of cotton. I'll show you my stove. I mean, I have an old canister stove from the 1990s. It's camping gas. I still have one unused canister for it, but the canister doesn't even have a valve on top. Once you screwed in the canister into the body, you couldn't remove it. So I have that. There was no easy access to paracord, no easy access to lightweight gear. The concept of ultralight barely existed. Tents were heavy. My cook gear was a plain and simple aluminum pot. So I have all that old gear. So I might just get dressed up in my old style and go do a video. But more incredible would be the fact that I still have a VHS camera that still functions. It's got the little mini tapes, but I could go out and videotape a modern episode using an old VHS camera. And that's what people today don't appreciate. I mean, well, they appreciate it, I'm sure, but people have no idea. Like the reason some of my old trails are not documented. I mean, I've been hiking. I have 4,000 kilometers of hiking in Jasper alone. So I've hiked every trail in Jasper. And when I think of trails, I've done the South Boundary, which I've not documented on YouTube, Sulphur Pass, Moline Pass, Glacier Trail, South Esk, a whole pile of places that I've been. But even when I went in those days, even bringing a 35 millimeter camera was a heavy piece of equipment, and I still have a 35 millimeter camera. And if you brought a 35 millimeter camera and you brought 5 or 6 rolls of film, even 5 rolls of film gave you 100 pictures. And if you took 100 pictures on the trail and you came back and half of them were good, you were lucky. You had pictures. But getting video in those days was unheard of. So today anybody can do what I'm doing, and it's so easy. And anybody can hike because you have access to so many resources, including my channel. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting. I will do that video. I will do that video of old school hiking. Another video I have planned shortly is now that the season's almost over, I'll do a 2019 review. I don't buy a lot of gear. I'm not one of those guys who goes out and buys the latest gear. I tend to buy gear, and if it functions for me, it functions, and I keep using it. Why just trade out gear for the sake of trading it out gear? I'm not going to trade out a pillow that weighs 1.6 ounces so I can buy one that weighs 1.4 ounces. I see guys reviewing pillows and doing all sorts of stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. And in fact, I know I could get more views if I did more gear reviews, but that's not me. I'm not about the gear review. In fact, what I want to go back to doing is go back to my roots and do hiking and document the hiking. I mean, I'm going to be a little critical, but there's a lot of guys out there that do constantly gear reviews, and then it's like, well, do you guys even use the gear? Do you even go out there? I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy who's just going to sit in his living room and review gear. So anyway, just a quick update. It's Sunday afternoon. I'm getting ready. I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow I'll post the video when I come out. it takes a reservation to go to Lake Minnewanka, but if somebody's got the day off tomorrow and wants to come overnight with me to Lake Minnewanka, meet me at the trailhead. I'll be there around. Uh, are you heavy hikers still LOAs? I'm not sure what that means, Joe. Can text that question again in a different? Are you heavy hikers still LOAs? Is that a brand? Yeah, so if somebody wants to join me at Lake Minnewanka tomorrow, it's going to be, I think I'm going to go to the Canyon Campground, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to walk across the ice, although I doubt we'll go too far. It's cold, but I don't think it's frozen that much. Boots. Oh, boots. I'm tomorrow. I'm still bringing my. I bring my Scarpas, Joe. That's the brand of boots that I like is my Scarpas. So I'm bringing my Scarpas tomorrow, but because I'm bringing my Pulk, I'm also going to bring a pair of hunting boots just so I can take off my hiking boots and have some comfortable hunting boots around the campfire. Actually, you'll see tomorrow I'm bringing a little bit of extra gear with the Pulk. I'm bringing a shovel, an extra tarp, definitely some extra clothing. I don't need a GPS. I need a good headlamp. Poles, snowshoes. I'll bring all my micro spikes because I'm actually going to do a video on micro spikes. So if I can't walk in snowshoes, then I'll end up walking in micro spikes. I actually have I have crampons. They're not mountain climbing crampons. They're more trail glacier walking crampons. And then I have some pretty good spikes and then some micro spikes. I'll bring all three of those and document the micro spikes. Yeah, that's it. It's pretty quiet Sunday. Actually, I'm surprised. I thought there'd be more people that might tune in. I could have done this any day of the week. Any recommendations for a better day to do a live broadcast? Yeah, obviously Sundays are people, or it's not something silly in the U.S. like Super Bowl Sunday. I guess it is the Thanksgiving Sunday in the U.S. So maybe a lot of my American friends are traveling today. That would make sense. Anyways, folks, hope you enjoyed this quick little short video. Just me spouting off. I'm on my way tomorrow to Lake Minnewanka for an overnight trip. When I come back, I will post that video probably Thursday or Friday of this week. And then after that, I'm going on a really nice trip with Evan Robertson. We're doing 4 days, so that's going to be really nice. Greetings to the Netherlands. My wife's family is from the Netherlands. My wife Karen is a first-generation Canadian. Her father Fritz was born in somewhere in the Netherlands. All right, folks, cheers.